Good afternoon and evening. Happy Thursday to you all. I'm Adam Luke. This is SessionWell on our podcast. First of all, why do we do SessionWell? If you haven't been paying attention to us, what this is SessionWell is a podcast for pre-licensed clinicians, licensed clinicians, and the everyday Joe. Basically, we want a place where you can come, hear about some interventions we might use as therapists, maybe some different ways of combating thoughts, moving through life. So again, I'm Adam Luke. This is my wonderful co-host.
I'm Judy and welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. We are so excited to have our guest tonight. And if you ever are wondering on how this podcast looks the way it does, my brother Fred Yen is really good at doing promo videos. He's a marketing agency. He does web design. He does lead generation. So if you're interested, his information is here too. He basically makes us look as good as we could possibly
10 times
look.
better than we do
on our own version.
Life.
So thank you to him. On to our guest. So this was a connection that Adam actually found for us tonight.
This is pretty much just Hope is awesome.
Yes,
it is awesome.
This guest is better. Sorry. Anyways, continue. Who are you?
I'm Anna, and I am an associate marriage and family therapist. I graduated from Hope in December 2017, and I'm at Trinity Counseling Ministries now with my wonderful supervisor, Dr. Amanda Wood. And I also lead an infertility support group at Saddleback Church. And I'm basically a crazy person when it comes to infertility. I want people to be supported well, loved well, cared for well, understood. So this is my favorite topic, and I might talk for a really long time.
Please do, but it's interesting when you say, like, I'm a crazy person
Yeah.
for infertility, because it's funny, then you list out all the things that, well, yeah, that's because no one talks about it, and if you do, then you must be crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, again, I know that some
Like
of you
a
guys...
downer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of you guys reached out and were like, infertility, this is what you're doing. When, Judy and I do our launch posts about 24 hours or the morning of, whichever it is.
Depending how busy our lives are.
Exactly. But, this isn't necessarily a topic that sits savvy with everyone, but no one wants to talk about it.
No one wants to talk about it.
And this is why when I first met this woman, she was like, let me talk about this. And I was like, oh, and this was years ago. And I was like, we've got to get her on.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And I'm gonna be honest, just personally, being someone that's 36 and, about to get married and, I want to have a family, it is something that is, very heavy, and it's something that I constantly kind of think about, and I've sat with many of my girlfriends' family that have had struggles with fertility, and so I just think the thing that we always end our conversations with is just that nobody talks about this. And how come we don't talk about it? It needs to be spoken about, not only from just a therapist side, but just as the regular population for both men and women, which I'm starting to notice. It's not just a women's thing. And so just kind of, can you tell us a little bit about why you chose this topic? Why are you crazy about infertility? What brought you here into this field?
Well, I was a teacher, so, that makes sense. I taught first grade, kindergarten. I loved the little babies. And the reason why I was going to be a teacher when I grew up was so that I could have a schedule and be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
That was always my plan. I married my husband. I joke that I married him because he would have cute babies. And so, first comes love, then comes marriage, then comes the baby in the baby carriage. I was 28. I was 24 when we got married, 28 when we decided that it was time to start trying for a baby. And then 16 months hit, no baby. So I went to the doctor, which was an unpleasant experience. She was not very responsive. She wrote infertile, all huge, on my chart in front of me.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So it started out bad.
Yeah.
And then, so it was 11 years ago now. And then, so we started the testing, which is its own form of invasive, and this thing that's supposed to be beautiful and wonderful between you and your husband becomes technical, and it becomes frustrating, and it becomes, what next? Why this? Why us? Why are we the ones when everybody is getting pregnant? Because nobody talks about it. So you're in line at the grocery store, what do you see all over the magazines?
Yeah.
Bump watch,
Yeah.
so-and-so's pregnant, here's their new baby. They just, and I will say I've seen more in the last 5 years than I did before. But I thought the numbers were like 1 in 1,000 couples, 1 in 1,000,000 couples. I mean, that's how it felt when my husband and I were going through it. And it's 1 in 8 in America.
1 in 8.
In the UK, Canada, it's 1 in 6. Worldwide, it's 1 in 4 couples.
Wow.
So I'm thinking I'm one, and nobody's going through this but me. Nobody knows anything. This is horrid. So we ended up doing the testing, and came to find out that we had male factor infertility, which was my husband had poor morphology, which is the shape. So basically, because everything else was fine, the sperm was getting there, and the egg was saying, "No, we don't like you." So we were told that our best bet was to do IVF. But I don't know how many people know this, but for the most part, IVF is not covered by insurance, and it costs tens of thousands.
I've heard it costs like $10,000. Is that a good estimate? Is that
That's
higher?
low.
That's low.
Our round was probably 30,000.
Wow.
Our IVF journey was probably 30, maybe 35.
Can you tell us a little bit more about like what IVF is and like what that journey is?
So with IVF, they stimulate the woman's ovaries to create eggs, and then they go in and they remove those eggs, and then they fertilize in a petri dish. They will either put the sperm in just to do kind of more of a, I hate to use the word natural, but natural way, or what we were encouraged to do is something called ICSI, where they take the sperm and inject it directly into the egg to give it the absolute best chance. So they take the sample from my husband, and then they inject, and then they wait and watch. So we had 5 embryos. And they transferred 2. We did not do genetic testing, which is a conversation we can have another time, but we opted not for that for personal reasons. They transferred 2. I started not feeling well and was calling and saying, I'm just not feeling well. Just not feeling well. Guys, I don't know what's going on. I'm just not feeling well. They're like, you're fine. It's the medication. Okay. Still not really feeling so great. So it's a 10-day wait from when they transfer the embryos until they give you a blood test to see if the embryo's implanted. They cannot, that's the one thing that they kind of can't control. They can make a beautiful embryo. They can place it in the womb.
It just
if it attaches, is up to that embryo. They can make your lining beautiful. That's what the shots in the rear area are for. Is
so you have to give yourself shots then?
My husband gave me shots.
Okay.
The whole time.
For 10 days or for longer?
The stimulation for the eggs is about 2 weeks, give or take. It depends on multiple factors. And then it's 10 days of progesterone shots, and then if there's implantation, is 3 months generally of progesterone shots, give or take. Again, it depends on your body and how your body is progressing. So we went in for the blood test. I'm still not feeling great. I've told them a couple times I'm just not feeling so great, and got a negative pregnancy test. So those 2 did not take. And I woke up the next morning and I had 101.3 fever.
Oh wow!
So I called the clinic and I said, 101.3 fever. I'm just really not feeling so great. To which the nurse said, "You are just upset, and once your period starts, you'll feel fine." So my period started. It was horrid. So I was taking medicine a lot, lots of Advil and Tylenol. So I didn't have a fever.
Okay.
And then stopped taking it, and fever spiked. And meanwhile, I'm starting to get really dizzy, and I'm just not feeling great. Like, I have no other description for it other than just not feeling great. And my neighbor, thank God, is an ER nurse, former ER nurse, took one look at me and said, "There's something wrong. Call your GP." Called my GP. She thought it was all sorts of things. She was wonderful. Listened to everything. She retired and I cried. But she's fantastic. So she ended up ordering a bunch of tests and called me and said, "I don't know what is going on, but your white blood cell count is really high. Your hemo is really low. You're going to the hospital." So went to the hospital. They did PET scan. don't know if it was a CAT scan. I don't remember. I was so sick by then that I have very few memories of what they actually. Yeah. I was just in and out of a lot of machines, and come to find out, I had a blood clot the size of a softball on my ovary, and I was severely anemic. That was the I don't feel well. That was the anemia.
Okay.
Which I never knew. I had never been anemic.
Okay.
So I had no idea that's
your energy level is something unrivaled by nature.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
You would have never known what anemia was. I feel like everyone else. This hurts.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. And even the nurses kept going, "You're walking. You have a blood clot the size of a softball, and you're walking." And I'm like, "It doesn't hurt."
Oh my God.
I was uncomfortable. I was never in pain. So I spent 8 days in the hospital. I had a blood transfusion. Because your normal hemo is at a 13, mine got down to a 7.
Oh wow.
So they were at one point were considering going in and removing the clot, which would have possibly cost me my left ovary. And because I had just been through IVF and was grieving that pretty severely, the wonderful OB said, I want to give you every chance to keep your ovary.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. She was incredible. So I ended up being able to keep the ovary, but it was 8 days in the hospital and about 4 months at home before I felt 100%. And this is the disclaimer for this. This doesn't happen to anybody else.
Yeah.
Nobody else in all of my years of hearing infertility stories, of hearing IVF stories, has had any complication like this.
Wow.
Okay.
They don't know what happened, and they don't know. Like, I'm a medical mystery and a medical miracle is what I've been told.
Wow.
So I went through all of that, and then I was broken. I mean, if I could even, I always say, some people talk about walking into a support group or walking into something. I felt like I army crawled. Yeah. I was broken. I called 6 churches and called different care pastors, and I just said, I'm broken, I'm scared. I've just been through this traumatic experience. Right. Where is God? And I didn't have any of those pastors call me back. So I was already feeling invisible. Yeah. And then I felt more invisible. So I Googled and said, I need a support group.
Yeah.
I don't even care. I'm going to support group. So I found the support group at Saddleback, which is how that came about. And at this point, I have no intention of being a therapist, of doing anything. I'm just trying to survive. Yeah. Right.
And this is Saddleback Church in Lake Forest.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had no intention of I'm going to go to support group. So I went to the support group, and that moment of Me Too.
Yeah.
Somebody understood me, changed my entire life.
Wow. My
whole journey. So fast forward a little bit, and I'm starting therapy because I'm having panic attacks. I'm a disaster. I was just a disaster. I was grieving.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I didn't know it was grief because I wasn't grieving a person.
Right.
I had grieved losing my grandmother. I had grieved losing my grandfather. I understood that. I didn't understand that I was grieving hopes, dreams, those precious embryos that to me were babies.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that was what this was.
Yeah.
And then having no one else understand it.
Yeah.
So I went to therapy. And my therapist said, so what if you can't have a baby? It's not the end of the world. And that was the last time I went to that therapist. And I didn't say anything to her. I probably should have in hindsight, but
it's like not helpful.
Yeah. I just was like, I just had nothing. So I'm trying to go to therapy. I'm trying to do all these things and to get ready because we have these 3 frozen embryos. Gotcha. So my goal is still baby.
Yeah.
Because baby is going to cure infertility.
Yeah. This pushes you past that, right?
So that's what's going to happen. I'm focused on that. So February of 2015, 15, let's say, I'd have to do math, we get ready to go in and have the transfer of those 3. Since the 2 hadn't taken, the doctor said, odds of you having multiples are pretty low. If you want to do the 3, we will, which is pretty rare. Most doctors do 1, but since ours hadn't been, but since ours hadn't been tested and we'd already had the 1 fail, he said, let's go for it. And I said, go big or go home. So we went in to have that transfer, and he walked in and informed us that there was 1. The other 2 had not survived being thawed. So we transferred the 1, went home for the 10 days, and got a call that was also no. So, okay, now what? I don't know what to do with this. And I'm so grateful that I had, at that point, a good therapist. And I had a church counselor who was amazing at Saddleback. The first time that I went in for her, which is something really good for therapists to hear, she cried with me. That's all we did. She held me, cried. It was amazing. It's amazing to have somebody just be that invested. And to just be like, I can't fix it. I can't make it better, but I can sit.
Yeah, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to be with you.
Yeah, it was amazing. So, we're still thinking parenting is in our future. So we don't know what. We're stunned. We're grieving. We're figuring all this out. Somebody approaches us and says, "Hey, someone we know is homeless and pregnant, and would you adopt the baby?" Okay, sure, I'll take a baby. And very long story short, that ended up not working. I was sitting in the Toys R Us parking lot about to go buy a car seat because they had told me about half an hour before, go buy a car seat, you're going to go get a baby tonight. And then they called me back and said, so there's some things that have happened that, no, you're not actually going to be able to bring her home. And that was another grief. And I remember just saying, you know what, God, I don't know what you're doing. I have no idea what you're doing. But whatever you do, don't waste my hurt. I laugh now and say, I had no idea what I was actually asking for.
Yeah. Be careful what you pray.
Yeah. And so at this point, I was teaching preschool. And I was miserable because it was so hard being around the kids, and I can't have kids. And and so my husband said wisely, I don't care what you do, but you have to do something. Yeah. You can't quit and stay home and cry. Which was very, very wise of him.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, whatever you do, don't waste my hurt. And 2 days later, the gal who was leading the support group announced she was stepping down. And I just went, oh, this is when my hurt doesn't get wasted.
Yeah. All of a sudden when God turns the sign on.
Yeah, neon. And so I emailed Saddleback and said, hey, and they let me take over. I led the one the next month, walked home and told my husband I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And he said, what does that mean? I said, I have no idea. So I talked to a friend who's a guidance counselor at a high school. And she said, I'm going to pretend that you're one of my kids. And we're going to go through this. And we're going to figure out what you're going to be when you grow up. Okay. So she goes, you need to go and be a therapist. Mm-hmm. So I started looking. And what drew me to MFT is the idea that it's relational, and that it's systemic, because so often infertility is medical, but it's so much more than that. It is so much more than that. I mean, I could spend 4 hours talking about just the relational impacts of infertility, but that's what drew me into this field. It's a very long story to come into. That's how I became a therapist.
Sharing. How was, I guess when you were talking to, I was wondering, like, how was it for your husband, too, during this time?
He was ignored, honestly. He would, he had one job. He went into a room and gave a sample. That was his job. And then he gave shots because I still to this day, therapist confession, I'm still needlephobic. So it was not fun giving me shots. There was a lot of tears. I have a Winnie the Pooh who would go over my face and I would just cry. So he had 2 jobs. Some husbands don't do the shots.
Yeah.
Some do. It's
wow.
It depends on how the woman feels about giving herself shots.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we would go to appointments and the doctor would say hi to him and then talk to me. Even some of the legal decisions were mine because I was considered the patient. So he was pretty largely ignored.
That had to be very isolating, right?
Well, and we're the only ones on his side who don't have children, his side of the family.
Oh wow!
And then my side, I'm one of 5 kids, and 3 are parenting, and 2 are not. So it's been an interesting journey.
And it's so funny because not funny, but it's just interesting how we work as men and women. You went and find a support group. Yet I know also men who have dealt with men infertility, and there's not necessarily a support group out there.
Did he go? That's what I was wondering. Like, did he lean on anyone? Did he have anyone to talk to? Other men? Not in terms of infertility. He had other men for support. That were great, just walking through him. But no, he. One of the things that came about after I started with the infertility group is we do a retreat every January, a couples retreat called Embracing Hope. We've done 3. There'll be 4 into January 2020. And that's been really cool for him to have a way of healing the same way that I am by supporting others and talking to the men then and different things.
He gets to advocate for others in a way that wasn't there for him.
Yeah. And he's always been, it's so funny, I always ask him before I do anything, is there anything you don't want me to share? Yeah. Nope. And one of the first times that I ever shared our story publicly, I said, are you okay? Do you want me just to say that we have infertility? He goes, no, I want you to say that we have male factor infertility because nobody talks about it.
That's a real man right there. I'm sorry.
And that's even talked about less than like women infertility.
It really, well, and the assumption, like I always say we have, because sometimes the assumption is just that it is just the woman, that it is just one person, but it's not. It's a couple's, the medical issue may be with one, but the resolution is a couple. Yeah, and it affects both of you. It does. It absolutely does. I looked at him at one point and said, I think we need to like start doing things that aren't infertility because I don't like you anymore. I used to like you. Like we used to like have personalities and have interests, and now we don't.
I think you nail it with the fact that marriage, love, intimacy, it's all systemic, right? There's a reason why we do it. And then we get there to infertility and it pulls that away, right? You talk about that stripping back. And I've heard that same message from other individuals that they're like, we had to stop and just start dating again. Yeah. Like, have sex for fun.
For fun, not the novelty of it.
Yeah.
Oh, schedule. I mean, people. The joke in the infertility world is people who say trying to have a baby, that's the fun part, have never tried to have a baby.
That's actually probably true.
The first 6 months to a year is fun.
Yeah.
And then when there's no after no after no after no, it's not fun anymore.
No.
It becomes a chore. It becomes embarrassing. There's this sense of failure. There's all sorts of things that go into it that take away that thing that's supposed to be so special and so core to a marriage, and it turns it into mechanics. And then you bring a doctor in. That's really fun.
Ever try making love with a lab coat in a room? Not that I have, but I'm just imagining.
I have had so many internal ultrasounds that I call the camera wand Wanda, and I always question whether or not, are you going to buy me dinner this time?
Yeah. So, what everyone needs to know about this podcast is this amazing woman put together an outline to make sure we hit everything.
Right.
And so, we want to make sure that we hit that. So, please.
So, when we're talking about supporting couples who are going through this, I had three kind of really simple tips that I'm going to make not so simple. But what I want people to remember is to be curious. Okay. Don't assume how their story is going to end, and don't assume where they came from. Be curious about their journey. My journey is very, very, very unique.
Yeah.
Hopefully nobody else ever has a blood clot the size of a softball in their ovary. It's not something I recommend. Sometimes we think people should do things a certain way. We should just do IVF. As you heard from me, there's no just in IVF.
Yeah.
It's expensive. It's invasive. It doesn't always work. And I think we want it to work so badly that we want everybody's to work. I know I do. Yeah. I always, but just the reality is it doesn't always work. So don't assume that where their journey will go. If you are curious about what somebody has done, don't ask it specifically. Okay. People who are considering IVF and not adoption, it sounds like a judgment if you say, "Oh, have you thought about adoption?" It's like, well, no, I'm selfish and I've done IVF.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It's not selfish to do IVF, but that's
how they make
how things can feel. So just be curious. So I would say, tell me your story. Tell me your story. I even say this if you're at Christmas dinner and somebody's single, somebody's been married for a while and has kids, don't ask.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, tell me what's going on with you.
Oh yeah, I remember. I mean, like as an older female, I guess. I mean, like one of the biggest annoying things when I was single was they would always be like, "Oh, how old are you? Are you gonna have kids?" I'm like, "Well, I gotta find a husband first." And then they'd be like, "Have you ever thought about freezing your eggs? You know you're old, right? Like you're at risk age. You better start freezing them." Like as if I could just freeze them easily and it doesn't cost a fortune.
Yeah, as if that isn't expensive.
Right.
And that's the beginning part of IVF. It's the same process.
Okay.
So it's belly shots. It's not the hiney shots, which is lucky for that process because those are, I'm gonna say those hurt.
Yeah. It's just like it's just weird. And even now, like people have asked because they know because usually right after marriage it's a baby, and it's like so many people have told me, okay, so right when you get married you're gonna start trying, right? Like it's very, and a part of me is like, well, I don't know if I want to start trying right away. I kind of just want to be married. And then everyone's, well, you're old. Like, your eggs are dying, and if you don't try right away, like, you face all these risks. And it's like things that I already, like, worry about anyway. And then just to have someone just, I always say, like, in an insensitive way, especially when they already have babies.
Yes.
That drives me nuts. Like, you already have a baby. Don't tell me, like, all these different things that I need to do because I'm in this at-risk age range. And so that's just really frustrating. That was my vent for the night on our podcast.
Well, no, and it's funny because Judy and I have talked about this in our own lives. So she's talking about this, and it's awesome. You guys are getting married, and you're planning your story, everything you're talking about. Then, like, my wife and I are coming up on 4 years being married. And it was the same thing. We dated for 6 years, and so people were like, well, you're dating a long time. And then, obviously, you're going to start having kids as soon as you're married. And I was like, well, no, we have, like, things we want to do. But it's even... It's interesting that, as soon as my wife clicked 30 years old, then it really seemed like the external pressures came on. And so that's why I've always appreciated how honest you've been on your journey. But it's like, we sit at 30 and 31 and we're getting hammered on the idea. And it has been a fear of ours. Absolutely, because we've been blessed with amazing friends that have had amazing struggles as well, and so it was interesting when you start talking to more people and you're like, oh wow, it's more common than you think, and then like you said, all of a sudden you find out like, oh, men can have problems too, and it's like this information's coming in, but no one's talking about it, and we don't know what to do. I just remember. When it would happen to friends that were very close to us, it's just like, all we can do is pray and see however they want help, we'll be there, but you feel petrified at the other side because I don't want to cause any more hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what be curious. Like, how can I support you? My favorite question going through this was when people say, I have no idea, what do you want? I'm like, I want a hug. I want a high five. I want to tell you how awful my shots were last night. I want, I want different things at different times.
Yeah.
I want to be super involved with my nieces and nephews. I want to take a step back and be a little bit less involved with my nieces and nephews. It moves. And so I think understanding that it moves because grief moves.
Right.
Yeah.
And the needs of grief move. But being willing to walk alongside and to be okay with the needs moving. I have a lot of sisters-in-law, but one of them, the one who had my latest niece, emailed me before she made the public announcement, and it was the sweetest gesture. She said, I wanted to let you know beforehand so that you had some time to prepare, so that you weren't bombarded on social media. We wish your journey was different. We're heartbroken for you. I understand if you're not going to want to be around me for a little bit while all of this processes. Of course, the first thing I did is text her, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Because she saw my hurt and she cared. And I bawled. I was like, thank you for taking the time just to say, a pregnancy announcement's hard.
Yeah.
Those are hard.
Yeah.
And we often feel shame because they're hard. It took me a long time to recognize that I could be happy and sad at the same time. So I can be, especially the longer I do this, as I have girls in support group who have amazing stories, I can be so happy for somebody else and completely heartbroken for me, and I had to learn how to hold that together. And sometimes it spills over.
Of course.
And so I've always tried to tell people, like, if I ever seem like I'm sad, it has nothing to do with your story. I'm thrilled for you. It has to do with my story. So I think understanding that somebody can be happy and sad, and that all they need is sitting with. We talk about, I talk about how I was going to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So I could be a mom.
Yeah.
We call it the reproductive story. And we start telling ourselves our stories at different ages. Mine started probably when I was 3 and my sister was born.
Yeah.
Because my mom tells the story of me walking in and picking up my sister from the bed. I was 3.5. My sister was very tiny. And my mom about had a heart attack. She'd left her in the middle of the bed to use the restroom, was gone. That was like, let's not,
Greatest mom ever, not.
I have no memory. So you know what? For all I know, she's sugarcoating it.
Yeah, mine does block things out.
That's true. But I was a nanny. I was always around kids. I loved being around kids. I'm fun Auntie Anna. You can imagine
Oh yes.
I'm fun Auntie Anna. And so I was always gonna, so from the get-go, I've loved babies and toddlers and little kids, and I don't like teenagers. So
I love teenagers.
But I figured by the time, I like them now. I shouldn't say that. But for a while I didn't like them.
I got you.
But I always figured I'd like them by the time mine got there. And now my nephews
just
are
hand them off to your husband. I got the best years.
No. One of my nephews are starting to hit their teens, and I'm like, actually, this is fun.
Yeah.
But understanding that everybody has their own reproductive story. Some people have dreamt of being a mommy since they were 2.
Yeah.
Some people hit 35 and go, oh, maybe I do want to do this. So everybody's story is different.
Just listening to what you were saying right there, it blows me away that, just like you said, from 3, you've got that, oh, baby. And so you could have a person that spends 30 years of their life with this idea, with this dream and this passion, and yet we ask them within 6 months to get over it, right? Where's the spot for that grief?
Yeah.
I really look at that, because sometimes, working with trauma and working with individuals of experience, I will spend you spent 15 years getting ready for this career, and this career didn't work out or whatever, but now put it in the context of motherhood and reproductive. How much space do we give them? Or guess what, guys? The idea of just get over it is never acceptable.
Yeah.
Someone's grief could be for the rest of their life. Why?
And it will be.
It's their story. It's their grief.
And I could have a baby tomorrow, and I'm still going to grieve that I lost my 5 embryos, and that I lost my adopted who I thought was going to be my daughter. It won't matter because those are individual, unique losses. I think that's one of the things in reproductive loss too. Is you'll have your rainbow, which is a baby born after loss. You'll have your rainbow. That baby doesn't replace another baby. Another one that if you ever want to watch me get on a soapbox, I will get on a soapbox. If you adopt, you'll get pregnant.
Oh, I've heard that, but I can't believe people actually say that out loud.
People say it to people after they've finalized an adoption. Oh, now that you have your adopted baby, you'll get pregnant. That baby,
dismissive of the adopted baby. Like, oh, good, we had to get the trinket.
You're just the stepping stone,
right? To get the actual baby that I want.
The one I want.
Oh yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So I will get on a soapbox very loud and very, very tall on that one. But because that baby, every baby is a precious miracle. However they join families. Another, I call it my pet peeve. And so when people say it, I always say they step on it and it squeaked. It's starting a family. Babies don't start families. Babies join families. They don't start families.
Oh, holy crap. That one rings, doesn't it? That one plays real well. Isn't that the truth? A baby's not going to fix a family or start the family. If you don't have a good unit going into it, boy.
Yep. And how dismissive are we, culturally, of families of two?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Very. Sorry.
That's
triggered.
That's why for me it's so frustrating because I'm like, I waited so long. I waited 36 years just to be married. Like, let me just be married.
Yeah.
But then, and then people start putting all this fear into you. And it's just like, I don't know, it's scary.
And it can feel at times like stealing a year away from you, right? Because that first year of being married is awesome. I can't wait for you to have it because it's literally like, sorry, I'm a dude, so I think back to this. Your first year of marriage is like the most awesomest Lego set ever, and you're getting to build it with like the person you love the most. And really it's like a giant adventure. And you get that year to do stuff. But when people, like you say, can be very dismissive of your time together, 3 years and you don't have any kids, or, it blows me away.
You're not complete yet.
Yes. Exactly. It's not good enough.
Yes. Yeah. You're married.
First, it wasn't good enough because we were dating.
Yep.
Now we're married, and because we don't have a kid, we're not married. IRS says I'm married. Anyways, but, I wanted to touch back on something that really, really hit me in the chest there when you talk about your 5 babies, your 5 embryos. And I remember walking through this experience with a friend where when they did have their child, it was like, I'll never forget, it was actually outside of church, someone said, oh, now it's fine.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't have the awareness of being an MFT in that moment, but I just remember being like, that stings. Like, I don't think it's all okay is ever a statement. This is a giant blessing. But like they were supposed to just forget, stop bitching about losing your kid. And I'm sorry to speak in that term, but that's really what it felt like. Yeah. And it was like, holy crap. Like, I think sometimes it comes down to people don't know what to say in these terrible moments. So they think, oh, this sounds good. Now you got it. You got your air. And it's like, no, that's not how this works.
Right.
Awesome. Like, that's so we're being curious about their journey, about their experiences, about, so if somebody sits across from you and you're curious, like, what, have they thought about adoption? Have they thought about IVF? Have they thought about other medical things? What have they thought about being child-free? What have they thought about? The question, tell me your story, or even just say, so tell me what family building things you have considered. What options have you considered? And the important thing to remember too is infertility does not automatically qualify you for adoption, for foster care. It does not qualify one couple over another couple for those paths. Those paths, they're wonderful, they're beautiful. I love working with adoptive families. It's a choice, just as IVF is a choice. as child-free is a choice. Those are all resolutions that can happen, and everybody's story is different. So when we come and we presume what they're going to do, it's dismissive.
Very dismissive.
And the other one that we don't like, really don't like, I mean, you really want to just shut down a conversation, tell somebody who's infertile to just relax. Just relax, it'll happen.
I don't like being told to just relax in general.
Yeah.
Oh,
but that is,
let's see what AJ says.
Yeah.
He's never done that.
I know.
Good man. He's never once told
If
me
you
to
don't
relax.
know the running joke, guys, AJ is Judy's boyfriend, and he's always awesome. Fiance. I'm even dismissing him now. I am so sorry, but he's always on our YouTube channel when we're live, and so I always, whenever she says something, I'm just like looking for AJ's like, not true. Anyways, but yes.
But being told by people to relax.
Just relax. It'll happen. It's gonna happen. You're young. Be present. Be present. Okay. So be curious and then be present. You don't know that it's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, I thought 11 years ago when we started, it was going to be 6 months maybe. I mean, I spent a lot of time going, I can't do that because I'll be pregnant. Oh, I can't do that because I'll be pregnant. I'm not going to buy that shirt because I'm going to be pregnant. I cannot tell you how much of life I missed because I'm going to be pregnant. I drive a convertible Mini Cooper now because my husband said, what do you want? And I said, well, why not get the convertible? Is what he said. He said, why not? Why not get it? I'm like, because I don't know, it's not practical. He goes, get it. Yeah. So I'm present. I had to learn to be present. And so we need to learn to be present with these people who are walking this journey of, well, my Christmas traditions don't really matter until we have the baby.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I could go on for hours.
It goes back to what you were talking about with that one therapist you had that was awesome that just held you. Because people, guys, we got to realize how powerful that is, right? So when you say about being present, it's about like, guess what? If you don't have the words, because the words don't necessarily need to come in the moment, just touch someone, just hug someone.
Just say, what do you need right now? Yeah. What can I give you right now? I love to say that the opposite of grief isn't cheerfulness, it's comfort. So often we try to cheer somebody up.
Right.
And that can have its place. It can be helpful. But most of the time, it's comfort. Tell me about your loss. I love when people post on Facebook that they're missing someone. I love to go in and say, tell me a story about them.
Ain't that the truth?
Tell me a story about them. Yeah. Wow. Because I want to hear what you're sad about, what you're missing. And then that's going to serve to be a little bit of a cheering up, right? But it's going to be comfort because that person matters. Yeah. I want to hear about that person because they mattered to you. Yeah. Same with loss, with reproductive loss. Tell me what you were excited to do with that baby. Tell me your baby's name. Wow. We named the 3 embryos that were transferred. That's something between my husband and I, but that's something that was meaningful to us to be able to do. And so people often name babies. And I always say one of my most precious jobs is that I get to remember these babies with them. And it's not something that I ever thought would be as honoring and as privileged as it is. As when somebody says, this was my son's name, this was my daughter's name, this was how long they were with me, this is what mattered to me, this is what I'm hoping to name my child. This is when I hear all of these things, I get to hold this with them, and it's an honor and a privilege, and it's amazing. It's amazing to be invited in to that story.
I can't imagine how powerful it must be just listening to what you just said there. Something that caught me was when you talk about my son's name was, my daughter's name was, and actually giving that mother and father and child the space to have existed. Because that was a son, that was a daughter, and I've heard the very cold remarks of like, well, it was a treatment. And you're like, ooh.
And it was cells, and one thing I will say, having walked this with as many people, is take the cue from the client. because some of them may not
True.
see that embryo as a baby to the extent that others do. So make sure that we honor that space.
Yeah.
Because it can be easy to come in and, oh my gosh.
Again, assume.
Yep. That's why go back to let them tell you.
Exactly.
You hold the space and they walk into it.
Yeah.
That's why I say honor the pain. Like, when people just say, wow, that must have hurt, or wow, your journey was so hard, or just whatever, so much more healing to me than, well, you'll get pregnant someday. I'm like, I'll get pregnant someday. And that's not going to change where I've come from. But saying, oh, wow, like, wow, that was hard. I'm like, that was hard. Is much more healing. So honoring the pain and letting it be painful.
Yeah.
Like, when I started healing, I think the most was when I gave myself permission to be sad and to grieve and to hurt. And I gave myself the permission that this was hard.
Yeah. And to hurt without other people's permission, right?
Just to give myself, like, this was hard, and this does suck, and this is awful. That to me is when I was like, oh, I can be okay. I'm okay being sad. I don't have to stay here. I always say I can shake hands with my grief. I don't have to wallow in it. I can shake hands with it now because it processed, it flowed through when I gave myself permission to hurt. And so I try to give that to other people.
So you've told us like really good things as on our end as the therapist. If there's something that you could tell people, like your clients or anyone that's just going through this journey, whether it's a couple, like whether it's male or female, like what would you
take care of yourself? I mean, we talk about self-care all the time. I'm telling you, and give yourself permission to not talk about the baby, to not worry about this cycle, this month, and just take space to breathe and be in the moment. And the moment might be, that you go rent a convertible and go for a crazy drive. It might be, you buy those jeans. They'll still be there after. Instead of putting off everything because that's all that matters, live now. How can you and your spouse connect now? What's something that you guys have always wanted to do that you could do now? One of the things that I started doing is writing a Christmas letter, because I always said when we have kids, I'll write Christmas letters when we have kids. I'll write Christmas letters when we have kids. And then one year I said, we matter too. People want to hear what we're doing. They like to hear, you told a Lego story, my husband loves Legos. They like to hear how many Lego sets you built that year. So, be mindful, right? Practice mindfulness now. And also, however hard it is, your story is going to be amazing. I promise. I looked, when we were in between the transfers and we were heading into that second one, I remember telling my therapist, if this doesn't work, there's nothing afterwards. There's a big black deep hole. There's nothing. There's literally nothing. I don't know what to do if I don't parent. I don't know what to do. And then I didn't parent. And then I haven't parented. And there's stuff that's amazing in this journey that I never would have thought was amazing. And it doesn't mean everybody's journey is going to be mine. But your story is going to be unique. And how your pain gets used can be unique and be special. And I promise it's survivable. It doesn't feel survivable right now, but I promise it's survivable.
Thank you.
I'm floored.
I'm just like, I don't know what else to say.
I can go for hours, so you're going to have to cut me off at some point.
Are there any, right now resources that you need, like any books or blogs or...
Resolve is the National Association for Infertility.
Okay.
So that's a good starting place.
Is it like resolve.org?
Probably.
Sure, Google it.
Yeah, because it automatically completes when I'm filling it in.
Perfect.
National Infertility Awareness Week is coming up in April. It's April 21st to the 27th. The theme is Infertility Uncovered. There'll be all sorts of awesome things to watch for, so Resolve is a great place to start. For faith-based, there's Sarah's Laughter out of Louisiana. She's incredible. There's a podcast where she has tons and tons and tons of women, including me. You already heard my story.
You're on there?
I did a podcast with her a while ago.
Awesome.
So hearing stories of all different experiences. So that idea that you're 1 in 8. There's a tribe. I say all the time that I never want to meet people who have infertility, but that this is the most amazing sisterhood that I've ever found. Wow. It's incredible. So infertility is too big to walk alone.
Yeah.
Don't walk alone. Resolve is a great resource. Sarah's Laughter is a great resource. You can find me on Saddleback Church / support groups. And
what night's your support group?
Third Thursday of every month.
Okay.
And this month we're doing Girls Night Out.
Perfect.
And Embracing Hope is the end of January, and we are at embracing.hope on Instagram.
That's for your retreat.
That's for the retreats. And then we usually do a luncheon in August called Journey of Hope.
Okay.
And then I will be doing something for National Infertility Awareness Week, Monday, April 22nd at Saddleback.
There you go.
So those are some good resources. I mean, there's a really cool documentary called Don't Talk About the Baby. That's fantastic that I just watched.
Okay.
I could go on. So if you want resources, contact them. They'll find me and I'll hook you up.
Contact Anna.
Yeah. Or Anna at yet-life.com. Email me.
Perfect.
This is what I do. That's why I'm telling you, I'm crazy.
No,
I'm crazy about infertility support.
There you go.
Because I walked alone for so long, and I'm telling you, that first day, the first step is the hardest. That first step into a support group, that first step into therapy, right?
Always.
It's the hardest.
It's the call, right? Sometimes it's just clicking on a keyboard, like you said, just looking for it.
But it'll change your life.
There you go.
Because this is not something that you should walk alone.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for being willing to come on here and give this thing a voice and speak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for joining us. If you have any questions about anything, you can contact Anna and contact us. We're actually not here next week. HIU is having their spring break, so we're going to have a free Thursday night, and we're just going to relax and hang out with our family. So we will be back the following week on the, what's the date? 28th.
There we go. All right, guys, thank you so much. As always, we appreciate you. If you're listening to this by car, or watching us live, or you're watching us after this, thank you for everything. And we will see you in 2 Thursdays.
Bye. Thank you.